Hello and welcome to the pregame chat. I'm Doug Kyed, joined by Matt Chatham, Zack Cox. Patriots playing the Colts tonight. It's a short week, Thursday night. If you're not aware of what day it is, I hope you are. Otherwise, you've got other problems on hand.
It really flew by, didn't it?
It really did fly by, and we've kind of been joking about the short week all week, where Belichick usually goes on this rant where he's like, well, Thursday is Friday, and Monday is Wednesday, and Monday is Thursday. But it's real, and for a former player like yourself, I guess I don't like saying just talk about, but talk about why the short week is such a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal, and I think in part the show tonight will feel a little like what they're doing. and what that means is you got to pick the high notes.
Yeah.
You can't spend too much time on details because, quite frankly, there's not enough time to get into them. Defensively, you're going to pare it down to the coverage that you feel most comfortable with, that you've seen work against them. You can't get into the crazy gadget stuff. Offensively, any timing-based play that you didn't already have installed, something you haven't already been repping, it's very difficult to throw new stuff in because it's just a series of walkthroughs. So you're studying the opponent. The last thing you're going to do is get into the deep tendencies and the things you would normally get into in a week's practice. You got to hit on the high notes. So for me, that's concentrate on the red zone, concentrate on the scoring stuff, concentrate on the stuff that's going to matter most.
And one guy who is really impacted by this short week is Julian Edelman, who's making his season debut, coming off that 4-game suspension, violated the NFL's performance-enhancing drug policy, but he's back tonight. So I guess for me, I kind of expect to see a lot of Julian Edelman tonight. I know that the Patriots have limited guy snaps in the past when they're coming back from suspensions. I think Rob Ninkovich back in 2016 or whenever his suspension was,
2016.
Only played about 38% of snaps, but my assumption is that since he's an offensive player, we might see him, 50 to 60% of snaps. So what are you thinking, Matt?
Well, it's an interesting idea, and I don't say that that's wrong. I say I'm up in the air, and I kind of don't know, and I think that's why we'll be all watching. One of the times I remember was actually I believe it was 2 preseasons ago, and Jules had been out for a little something, had been banged up for some reason, and he and Tom had a ton of work together. It was a preseason game in Carolina, and I remember him running a little jerk route over the ball, and kind of coming out of the route, and Tom putting it in a place other than where he broke. You don't want to see these kind of plays, but the timing element is so much different with a guy like him because it's such a trust-based thing. It's such a rep-based thing. And when you haven't seen a guy for a month, I saw it maybe a little differently than you saw it, and neither of us got to do it at full speed together. So if I'm simply going to guess on a rep count, I'll stick it closer to what I saw from Josh Gordon. Certainly that's not to say that their roles will eventually be comparable to one another. It's just that 20 to 25 play rep deck, maybe he's targeted in the 3 to 5 range. I think that might be a little safer, but I think the good thing for the Patriots is last week we learned that they've got enough catch and run guys. They've got enough guys they could go to on a gotta-have-it moment where it's not as if, man, we need you for 30 or 40 plays tonight, Jules. I think that work him in role could be a good thing for him.
Yeah, Tom Brady talked all week about how he and Julian Edelman basically kind of have the same mind at this point. They've worked together for so long. He says, I know exactly when he's going to get open. He gets open so much quicker than anybody else, yada, 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 which makes you kind of think that, all right, maybe he will have a pretty significant role in this game. But when you remember that Julian Edelman did miss all of last season, they worked together during the summer, during training camp, but Julian Edelman didn't really look like he was 100% during training camp. He even said that he wasn't. He said that he didn't have his football legs back under him. He was slow. He was still working his way back from that injury. So it's been a long time since Tom Brady has worked with a full-speed Julian Edelman. And with this being a short week, I do think he's going to play a little bit more than Josh Gordon did last week, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the kind of 40 to 50% range.
Real quick on this, the comp that we have is Tom Brady, right? And when Tom missed his 4 weeks and had to come back, the one benefit he had was that he had a full week of practice. It's the weird part here isn't just that it's Jules' first week back, it's his first week back and it happens to hit on a Thursday. That's what makes me kind of go, I don't know, let's all watch it together.
I do think that, whether it's this game or moving forward, Edelman will have a gigantic impact on this team because he's that slot receiver that they've really been needing in this offense, the guy who can get open quickly, and Chris Hogan's mostly been playing that slot role, and I think that's not only been hurting the Patriots offense from the slot perspective, but also from the Chris Hogan perspective because he's just not able to do as much work. He's not as able to be as good out of the slot as he is outside. So I think that's why we've seen Hogan get off to a slow start. He's not that guy who can get open quick like Edelman can, like Welker could, like Amendola could. And the Patriots have not had that element in their offense moving forward here, or in the first 4 weeks here. So I think moving forward, that will be really big for their offense. I think that Edelman also could have an impact on Rob Gronkowski moving forward too, just because some of the attention will be taken off Gronk, whether it's tonight or whether it's moving forward, where Gronk might not see quite as many double teams. Patriots might have a little bit more success against zone defenses when Edelman is back in the offense.
One point on this, and I think it's great that you bring that up, because when Josh Gordon came, one of the first thoughts was, well, he'll absorb coverage, and that'll take it off Gronk. And you add in Edelman, well, he'll take some off as well. But I think at some point it does kind of hit mathematics. You can only ever double two, presuming you're rushing somebody, right? So you do get into a point where I think there's always an element of someone else that might draw attention other than Gronk, but it can never be two people. We just understand that sort of intuitively how the math works out there. But what Julian can do that can help is the kind of coverages you're willing to do around him. Are they willing to go straight zone? No, because this guy zigs and zags out of everything, sits in holes. What he does is maybe not draw a double, but he might, with the way Brady moves his head and shoulders, make coverage go one way.
He draws attention at least.
He draws attention, exactly. So I don't think you go out there and go, dang it, Jules is back, the coverage is changing, we can't do this, that, or the other. I just think he's a great add-in that makes them better overall.
I think the biggest factor is that Julian Edelman, Rob Gronkowski, and Josh Gordon have all proven throughout their career that they can beat one-on-one coverage. And that was a big issue for the Patriots receivers earlier this season. They didn't have anybody that could beat one-on-one coverage, just go out there and straight up beat the guy that they were going up against on defense. And those are three players that can do that. I mean, now obviously Josh Gordon and Julian Edelman are both not, I guess, they're proven quantities in the past, but right now, just with how long Gordon's been away from the game, how long Julian Edelman's been on the shelf with the injury and the suspension, you don't know exactly what you're going to get from them tonight and moving forward. But if either of those players are at anywhere close to their peak, then this is an incredibly dangerous offense.
You transition us really well into sort of what happened a week ago with the Dolphins. We'll talk about offensively and defensively, what was better, what worked there. And you mentioned sort of the notion of maybe not a couple weeks ago getting open against man-to-man coverage as well. Last week was a week where offensively they did that, but my view, what helps that is the run game. Everyone looks better in man-to-man coverage when they're not sagging off the ball. Jacksonville way off the ball. Detroit, they're playing top down on everything, and you're saying, wow, well, you come out of the huddle and Dorsett's got a go route. Well, the guy's 10 yards off the ball because they don't feel like they have to pack the box. It's not a failure of the route to get on top of a sagged coverage. It's a failure of the run game to pull people down so they can beat one-on-one. We saw Philip Dorsett in that end zone make one of the most incredible catches you'll see this season. That's one-on-one coverage. We saw Chris Oken get open with a play-action element against one-on-one coverage. When the run is good, when the edges are being collapsed, when they feel like they got to bring down the 7th, 3, and possibly 8th body, everyone can play fair one-on-one coverage, and that's the fundamental difference.
And speaking of the run game, actually, the Patriots waived Kenyon Barner to make room for Julian Edelman. So Patriots are only going into this game with 2 running backs, which definitely seems a little dangerous on the certainly weird, especially since they carried 5 running backs last year, including Brandon Bolden, Mike Gillislee, and everything. And I think on the surface you say, okay, well, what happens if Sony Michel gets hurt? Because then you have to insert James White as that between the carries the runner. But I think the bigger issue is, what if James White gets hurt? Because Sony Michel has not proven anything in the passing game so far. Out of the backfield, he's been dropping passes, he's been running the wrong routes. So I think that you don't want to predict for an injury or anything, but we do kind of have to talk about it since there's only 2 running backs on this roster. I think the Patriots would have to get creative in that instance if something did happen to James White, where you might see Cordero Patterson catching balls out of the backfield.
Jacksonville game.
Yeah, James Devlin might have to get more involved. Maybe even Jacob Hollister, because we saw him run a route out of the backfield from fullback. He's a little bit more athletic than James Devlin. I think they would definitely have to get creative, and I don't know if they had the opportunity to get creative in such a short week this week.
I think even if nobody gets injured in this game, I think you might actually see some Cordell Patterson carries. The Raiders last season used him as a running back basically for half of the season. He was almost more productive as a running back lining up in those traditional running back sets than he was as a wide receiver. So he's already kind of had a few carries in that role this season. I think they could kind of up it a little bit tonight if they need to.
So the guy I'm watching that won't be involved this evening, but I'm interested to see what they do with Ralph Webb now moving forward. Ralph Webb's on their practice squad. He, in my view, I was unsure if the Barner thing was, what the thought was there.
Yeah.
I think now there's
didn't
a vacancy.
Really have a role on the team.
Yeah, really didn't. And he actually played okay in the fourth quarter of last week. He contributed. It's like, okay, maybe they'll work up with him, but we knew they were in a tight thing with Julian's situation, so they move on. But we're talking tonight about what we think you could do in a Band-Aid fix in a hurry. I don't know if long-term they go that route, so we'll watch and see. Some of those guys we know they worked out. Maybe that's the answer, maybe it's Ralph. Beyond that, in-game, I think because of that situation, rather than just figure out who might get the ball, I think it might more instruct play calling, quite frankly. You might not want to get 35 to 40 carries and risk that injury. So maybe they feel like this is a spread them out week. One of the things that I was advocating for heavily this week, and I think really bears out on the film, if you look at the personnel that they built on this roster, I would arguably say, I think I win that argument, but that this is one of the best collections in the NFL of catch and run pass people. Yep. Now that doesn't mean it's the best group of wide receivers, traditional route running guys that are going to each have 1,000 yards. It's not that. But if you look down the roster, what's the one attribute that these guys have? From Philip Dorsett, we've seen it time after time. Make the first guy miss, explode, get extra yards. I know he's fallen down a couple times, but in that moment where you get it in his hands, he's one of the most explosive guys in the league. James White, that's your best, one of the best, if not the best screen runner in the NFL right now. Swing passes, that guy makes people look silly. Going down the list here, Julian comes back. Julian Edelman is a former punt returner, one of the best punt returners in the league. And I think physically that's still something he can do quite well. Chris Hogan's another guy you can possibly add in there. Gronk is another guy as well. But
yeah,
you
Gordon
start to
and
look
Hogan
at,
are like the slant and run guys.
Yeah, now I haven't even mentioned Josh Gordon. And Josh Gordon's not elusive, but he's so explosive. People sag on him like they did a week ago. Get the quick slant, like Doug said. That guy can take off and go forever.
Broke three tackles on 2 catches last week?
It's a really good
powerful
roster.
And now let's transition to the defense, actually, because the defense dominated the Dolphins in week 4. And I think that looking at the Colts roster, seeing some of the injuries that are on the Colts roster, seeing some of the troubles that they've had in the run game this year, I think we might see a similarly, maybe not quite as dominant because it would almost be impossible to be as dominant as they were against the Dolphins, but I think that we start to see this defense continue to get on track here, and maybe they're not allowing less than 200 yards like they did in against Miami last week, but I think that Andrew Luck will struggle to move the ball, and I think one of the biggest differences last week was definitely the return of Trey Flowers and Patrick Chung, and that really helped increase the Patriots' pass rush. I actually asked Colts head coach Frank Reich this week about why did the Patriots defense look so much better? And he said it was the pressure on the quarterback. So if the Patriots can get pressure on Andrew Luck, I think that will definitely help them continue to move this defense forward and not show the same issues that they had in week 2 and 3.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at this Colts roster right now, with all the injuries they have, there are going to be a lot of skill position players out on this field that casual fans have never heard of, really. I mean, T.Y. Hilton.
Good young players, but not household names, right?
Not name recognition at all. T.Y. Hilton out for this game. Jack Doyle, the tight end, out for this game. Marlon Mack out for this game.
Yeah.
Now, Doyle and Mack have been out for a couple weeks, and the offense has kind of been able to stay afloat, but losing T.Y. Hilton is a huge blow for this team. I mean, they're going to be going in with Zach Pascal, Chester Rogers, and Ryan Grant as their top 3 wide receivers. That's not an NFL receiving core right there. They've got some young guys. Naheem Hines, the running back, is a really exciting player. He's probably the guy that the Patriots most have to have their eye on in this game. And Andrew Luck is having a good season. He just threw for 460 yards, I think, last week, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's bounced back well from that shoulder injury that cost him all of last season. But he doesn't have the weapons in this game right now, I don't think.
So one of the things that I want to make sure I don't fall into the trap of, because I did this a little bit against Jacksonville, Keelan Cole was not a name I knew real well. D. Westbrook, not a name I knew real well. Young, surprisingly athletic, guys can make plays, but you didn't want to put too much stock in that passing game, but they could play. I put Chester Rogers in that line. Grant, I believe, was the other guy's name, number 11. Yeah. Those guys can play. In that comeback portion with the Texans or the down the stretch, those guys made some nice plays. Hines, you mentioned, I think, is probably the one you'll get more focused. Now, this goes back to my original point about Thursdays, when you really have to just hone in on the most important part. And to me, that becomes scoring area. And why do I bring that up? Because that's where Hines shone the most. And we know, back to the Jacksonville game, that some of the back movement stuff had become a problem, especially as you get into the scoring area. So getting him tuned up down there, and for my eyes, that means jamming him. That means the defensive end's not flying off for the sack you're not going to get, but hitting him out of the backfield, especially in the red zone, to get him out of Andrew Luck's read. The other person, is Eric Ebron. And now people out there may not have picked up on fantasy guys will have picked up on this, but Eric Ebron's no longer in Detroit. He's here. Most of his action comes in the red zone. It's actually sort of the offensive transition that these guys have. A lot of field work with T.Y. Hilton when he's active. A lot of high tendency stuff for him on third down in certain areas out in the field. Now he's off the board. It shifts to the young guys there. But the tendency that does hold over is Ebron once they get in the scoring area. So finding a way to account for him, probably a matchup with Patrick Chung. He's got roll well against top guys. But knowing that the ball's being sent there either to him or the back, I think that's a great tendency to look into heavily, and you really got to win in that area.
Yeah, I believe Ebron leads the Colts in touchdown receptions this year, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, he's got 2 or 3 this year, and I think that one guy who's key on Nyheim Hines is, like you said, chipping him out of the backfield would be Kyle Van Noy, who's been playing that edge role, that kind of edge outside linebacker type role. Let's get into our keys of the game, and like I did last week, I'll let you guys give your keys first so that I'm the one who has to scramble at the end and try to think it's something at the last minute.
We're going to go down the line with offense. You give the offensive key for the Patriots first for you.
Offensive key for the game. I don't know if it's a key to the game, but I want to see Julian Edelman involved, and I want to see Josh Gordon involved. I just want to see progression from both of those players. Now, Josh Gordon had a very impressive debut. The stats weren't really there, but if you actually watch the game, both of the catches he made, very impressive. Was very good in the run blocking game, drew a penalty to pick up another first down. I want to see some progression from him. I honestly think that if the Patriots play their game, this should be a relatively easy win. So I want to see progression from those two players that are coming back.
So I'm going to go with more of a theme than an actual person, and it's keep the Colts on their heels defensively. And what I mean by that is you're going to be at home, or either you're here in the stadium watching this game. I think the pre-snap movement, the shifts, the motions, the being multiple, the being confusing helps you against a group like this that didn't have those extra days to work on all the different formations. The thing that's one of the really kind of sneaky good attributes to this team, or what they could be, they've only had 1 week of work with it, is the ability to have an emotion guy, a guy like Cordarrelle Patterson that goes on sort of a jet sweep fake, then doesn't get the ball, and the guy that they screen it back to is a gadget guy as well, like James White or Julian. Basically, you can have multiple guys on the field at any time that they can't key on for the gadget because any of them could be the gadget guy. That's hard on a defense anyway. It's even harder when you didn't get a week to work on it. If we see the Patriots lining up in big sets with 2 tight ends and no motion or movement, yeah, you give them a chance to stop you. If you stay difficult, I think it becomes next to impossible for the Colts.
One quick note on that. The Colts are already without 2 of their top 3 cornerbacks in this game. And they could be without Darius Leonard, their rookie linebacker, who's really been kind of a defensive rookie of the year candidate in this game. Those 3 players are all out. That really hurts this defense that, like you said, didn't have a lot of time to prepare for this Patriots offense.
Speaking of injuries, my offensive key is simple. It's just stay healthy because Rob Gronkowski's already dealing with that ankle injury. Julian Edelman's coming back from the 4-game suspension. He had the torn ACL last year. This is a game that the Patriots should absolutely win. They should dominate the Colts. They should blow them out. I know that things are complicated because it's a Thursday night game and everything, but all things considered, the Patriots absolutely should win this game. We got Zolak in the background here. Patriots are playing the Chiefs next, though, and that's going to be a much more difficult challenge for them. So I think that if you have to limit Edelman and Gronk a little bit, this is the game to do it so that they're fully healthy for the Chiefs. Let's get on defense. Chatham, I'll start with you.
I'm going to lump the defense and special teams point together for the purpose of time here. But defensively, I touched on the red zone. That's still, to me, the biggest key, and it's sort of understanding those 2 guys. But there's a third portion to that, and it's Andrew Luck with the step-ups. Andrew Luck is one of the best passers in the league, in my view, on step-up throws where he doesn't have to reset his feet. You've seen him do this a million times. You'll see a lot of guys that slide and reset, and they got to get square, and then they throw the rifle. He does this thing. It's almost like a Steve Young type deal where he stays unbalanced and still able to put it on. You have to keep that guy from stepping up. It's a phone book week. It's not up the field past him. He'll step up and go. He'll scramble for first downs in the red zone. But more importantly than that, stepping up and throwing where it's just 2 quick steps and he gets it off. You can't have that. This is phone book. This is push him from the front. This is not let him get out and make plays down in that scoring area. Control the pocket. Control those 2 targets we talked about. I think that's the way to roll.
My key here is contain Nyheim Hines. It's kind of crazy to say that this mid-round rookie is the key to a team's offense so early in the season, but he's the most dynamic offensive skill player that they have. Patriots in the past have had difficulty covering running backs out of the backfield. They had a lot of trouble down in Jacksonville a couple weeks ago doing that. I think kind of limit him, let him beat you, especially in the red zone there. And the Patriots cornerbacks have been playing pretty well so far this season, especially, I mean, I know you wrote about Jason McCourty this week. He's having a very surprisingly good season, I would say. Stephon Gilmore still playing very well. So I think they should be able to shut down this depleted Colts receiving core. And basically, if this defense plays up to its potential, again, like you said, not expecting a repeat of last week because that would be a pretty high bar to set. But I think if they play to their potential, they shouldn't have an issue with this offense.
Yeah, my key kind of ties into yours a little bit there, and that's just that the Patriots can't allow any big plays, because that's really the way that the Colts would win this game, is if they are able to rally and get some 40, 50, 60-yard touchdowns in here. So this might be a big, Devin McCourty, Deron Harmon game. Keep them in the back. Make sure that the Colts can't get over the top of the cornerbacks. I do think that Gilmore and McCourty, Jason McCourty that is, shouldn't have too much trouble with Ryan Grant, Zach Pascal, Chester Rogers, but just make sure that they don't get past them, because that really is the one way that teams can sneak up on the Patriots and sneak out a win by getting those big plays. If the Patriots stay disciplined out there, I think they should win this game.
So I jumped over special teams, and that's a jackass move on my part. I used to play that position. So I think I'll just make one overarching point on
absolutely.
that. You guys have watched a lot of Thursday Night Football, as I have, since they've expanded this package over the last several years. We know these games often go one of two ways, at least in my summation. They're either really boring because they're ugly as all hell, one team blows the other team out, and you can tell early in this thing they want to go home and get back to regular football schedule, or it's a slogfest and it goes to the end and you're wondering when this thing's going to be over. Yeah. Special teams can get really involved in sort of helping put a foot on a throat in these situations. A good early score, a field flip, something that just makes it not quite as overwhelming for the other side. Getting the offense a great set early where it's just 2-3 quick scores and not giving one up. That's a big part. You want to keep the Colts in this thing. You want to keep them competitive to the end. Don't give up a big return. So special teams plays a big role, especially in games like this where, hey, your plays don't need a lot of practice. These aren't things where you're scheming up some new wild thing. You're probably doing stuff you've already done before.
Yeah, weird stuff always tends to happen,
doesn't it?
On Thursday Night Football, and a lot of that time that is a special teams play.
Absolutely. Well, in our last segment here, let's get into the Chatham's Choice, a nice alliteration there. This is our betting segment here. So, Matt, what is your best advice for the gamblers out there in this game?
Well, my best advice is you don't gamble on Thursdays. And unfortunately, I got to give you one tonight, and that kind of sucks because, quite frankly, this is a night where anything goes. So on that note alone, the spread as I last saw it was at 11. It'd been 10 during the week. It bumped a bit. T.Y. Hilton's move, maybe that helped him grab another point from that. But I'm a little too scared about that line. 11's a little high in a game like this where maybe the Patriots jump out in front and there's a late ugly score, a bad beat kind of thing, and you don't want to get in a situation like that. So for me, I'll go with the thing that feels more predictable, and that's just simply overall output. We're going to go with the over on 50.5 points. I like that just in that sometimes the ugliness results in more points. This Patriots offense, I think, has really hit the nail on the head a week ago, the kind of team they can be, and they play a defense this week. They can't do much more, I believe, than Miami could. So safe with the points, go above it, and I think Luck will have a drive or two towards the end to keep that thing over and not give you a bad beat on the point side.
Yeah, 11 points is very
terrifying.
Ambitious. Very ambitious.
Terrifying.
But I predicted last week that the Patriots wouldn't cover the spread. They covered it by about 27 points. I'm taking the Patriots on the points.
Okay.
I
don't think you'll be wrong. I'm just not willing to put my money on that.
Me neither. Look, looking at these two teams, I don't see how the Colts keep this game close.
Yeah, I'm actually going with you, Zach. Patriots and the points. I think this is going to be a blowout. It is kind of scary because you could imagine this game being, 31-20 and then it's a push. But I do think that the Patriots are going to blow out the Colts. I think it would take a lot for the Colts to beat them. I think it would take a lot for the Colts to put up many points in this game, just given the injuries that they do have on offense. I don't think they're going to be able to stop the Patriots offense either based on the injuries that they've got on defense. So I don't know. I think this is a really tough game for the Colts to put up much of a challenge here. I'm not saying this to not watch the game or anything. I do think this is going to be one of those games that is a blowout because it's a Thursday night game and it's a team that's coming off a good victory and a team that's dealing with a lot of injuries here.
One caution, if you are happen to gamble on our Vice tonight. A year ago, the Patriots went down on their Thursday and played at Tampa, and it was one of those slog, ugly, down to the end. That's why the 11 terrifies me. But I believe he said something about keeping the Colts down or putting the Colts down. We don't put down horses. No soap factory jokes here. I think I just told one. But that is the end of the Nesson pregame chat. I'm Matt Chatham. That's Doug Kyed. Zack Cox. We had a blast, folks. See you each and every week.
Playing through injury.
Playing through an injury.
Hurt.
Yeah.